what's the difference between a PNG, a Live2D, and a 3D model? Well, a lot. But don't let this stop you from becoming a VTuber, because I'm going to explain the differences between the three of them, and by the end of this video, you should have a better understanding of which route is best for you. I'm a VTuber, and you'll regret this. So let's start with the first option, which is PNG or GIFtubing. Being a PNG tuber is one of the easiest ways to get into VTubing, and I don't know why so many people like to dunk on it. The gatekeeping for it is really stupid because it's a very valid way for content creation. Plus, there are so many different things you can add to PNG tubing, such as multiple expressions and poses you can swap between with hotkeys, or you can make it an animated GIF. Honestly, PNG tubing is a very common way to create videos between a lot of faceless content creators. You just need to be creative. With that being said, how much can it cost? Well, if you can draw, it costs $0. That's right, free 99. But if you suck at drawing or at life, then you can commission someone to draw your character. This can be quite affordable since it's just drawing one PNG. Of course, if you want the artist to draw additional poses or add in blinking or mouth open and close, then that's gonna cost extra. Let's go over some pros and cons about PNG tubing real quick. It's incredibly easy to set up. It doesn't require a bunch of external programs or software. You don't have to separate anything except for maybe the eyes and mouth if you want to set up blinking and mouth movements when you're talking, but overall, it's the simplest way to get your foot in the door for VTubing. However, with that being said, if you have just a single PNG, it might look a bit boring for some people. Even as a GIFtuber, you're still limited by the few frames you have for your model, especially compared to a Live2D model which has actual animations programmed into it. However, like I said, with enough creativity, you can still make a lot of interesting content as a PNG tuber. Maybe you like the idea of using your own art style, but want to have more movement, then maybe a Live2D model is a good choice for you. What is a Live2D model? It's basically taking your PNG drawing, cutting it up into a bunch of different layers, then putting it into a program called Live2D Cubism and making trackable movements. You can rig your model to make all sorts of expressions, movements, and even make custom animations that all respond with just the look of your face or with hotkeys. Live2D rigging is taking all the layers either you or someone else drew and then animating it. It's what makes the Live2D model alive, I guess? Now that all sounds great, but I'm sure you're probably wondering, how much can it cost? And honestly, it depends. If you don't have money, but have some creative skills, then you can learn to draw and rig your Live2D model. It will take some time and there's a bit of a learning curve, but I have quite a few videos on how to do this that you can check out. If that sounds like a lot of work and you would rather commission someone, then I like to say that 1, I don't blame you. It is a lot of work, especially if you want to look good, and 2, there are already some amazing artists and Live2D riggers that exist, and you can easily find these people on websites like VTuber.gg, Twitter, or Fiverr. But I would like to emphasize to be careful on the last two because there are a lot of scammers on Twitter and Fiverr. At least VTuber.gg has all of the artists and Live2D riggers be verified by multiple people in the Live2D Discord before they're even allowed to post on the website. So you know that anyone who is on VTuber.gg is a trustworthy artist. Now, even though you can commission someone to draw your model, I would like to point out that not every artist understands Live2D rigging, so they might not separate all your layers correctly. Even though there's so many guides on how to separate the art, some artists just don't get it. This is important because poorly separated art will limit your range of movement. And I've worked on a lot of Live2D rigs with the art not being separated properly, and I had to go into Photoshop and separate it myself, which is not only a headache, but it costs you more money because doing this takes a lot more time. Sometimes if you're lucky, you might find an artist who can do both, where they will draw your Live2D model and then do the rigging all in one package, but more often than not, people usually commission an artist, then a Live2D rigger, which leads us to, what is the actual cost? And the answer to that question is, you guessed it, it depends. Because every artist has their own price range for what they charge. Some people might only charge $100 for the art, and others can charge over $1,000. And that's just for the art. I'm not even talking about the hundreds or even thousands of dollars people spend on the rigging, because yeah, it can cost that much. And you know what? It's worth every penny. As long as you're happy with your model, then I think it's worth it. But I will say this, please take some time to really do your research when selecting these people, because not everyone's price range and skill sets are created equal, and there's an artist for everyone's budgets and desires on what they want to accomplish as a VTuber. So what are some of the pros and cons for this, since you could be potentially spending a lot of money on a Live2D model? Well, you have the option to have your VTuber model look the closest to anime, and yes, I consider that a pro because anime! You can use a variety of different art styles, and I've seen some really, and I mean really, interesting VTuber art styles. With that being said, overall, a lot of people just prefer a Live2D model because of how it looks. It's actually okay to look at a Live2D model and see that the movement isn't that accurate, because if it feels too realistic, then it kind of ruins the charm of a 2D model. However, because there are limitations to Live2D models, some people consider that a con. Currently, there's no real way to get full body tracking, and there are developers trying to make something, but who knows when that will actually get released. You have to rig every single animation and movement you want the model to do. I think what a lot of people don't understand is that a Live2D's model movement is limited to your face tracking. Sure, we currently have hand tracking, but it's clunky and not easy to set up on the rigging side. And there are a few developers out there who are constantly trying to improve the technology with Live2D cubism, but at the time of this video is being made, there currently isn't a way to get a nice fluid movement and full body tracking on a Live2D model. Another thing that a lot of people don't realize is that every little movement your model can do was manually animated in the program. It can't be automated like a 3D model, which means that a lot of work needs to be done by the rigger to give your model fluid movements, and it's why rigging can cost so much. Basically, the more movement you want, the more money it will cost. Live2D has become the new industry standard for a lot of different agencies because you can have a model that feels a lot similar to anime. But it is not the standard for VTubing. You can be a successful VTuber without having a Live2D model, which is why I would like to introduce you to 3D models. What really annoys me about 3D models is that it only recently became more accepted as a way to VTube, when in reality, it's always been a valid way to VTube. R.I.P. Pokimane, who debuted and graduated the same day her 3D model came out on Twitch. If 3D is something you're interested in, then you have a lot of options to think about, because over the past 3 years, the technology for 3D models has expanded so much. But before I get into all of that, let's talk about the cost. How much does it cost? Well, just like Live2D models, this can cost anywhere between $0 or $10,000, but it depends on a couple of different things, such as, are you making the model yourself, or will you be using free and paid assets? Because if that's the case, then the cost will vary depending on the paid asset, which you can buy some really cheap pre-made assets on Booth for 3D models. Or are you commissioning someone to make the model for you? Because a 3D model from scratch can take a lot of time, and every 3D modeler charges differently depending on what it is you want from the model. I think one VTuber that comes to mind when I hear 3D is CodeMiko, because she completely changed the game and how 3D V-streamers are perceived. I've made a few videos talking about her and her influence on VTubing, so if you're interested in that, then I'll link it in my bio down below. With that being said, let's go over some pros and cons for 3D models, because there are some things that I would like to point out. 3D models are not limited in their movements, since you don't have to animate every movement like Live2D models. If all the bones are added in correctly, then you can do a variety of different things with your body. You can even add hand and full body tracking easily, and I've seen some VTubers using their 3D models in VR chat a lot. I also noticed that a lot of VTubers have their 3D models look almost 2D with certain shaders. However, with that being said, sometimes 3D models can look a bit weird. There have been a few instances where someone's model feels too realistic, and it gives this really uncanny valley vibes. It can also be very expensive to upgrade your hardware, since there are so many different tools you can use for your 3D VTubing, and the cost for all of these will greatly depend on what kind of content you want to make. You also need to make sure that your computer is powerful enough to run all the software and hardware you want to use for your 3D model, and I personally don't think one method is better than the other. It really comes down to what kind of content you want to create as a VTuber. I started out as a PNG tuber, then I tried 3D and realized I'm terrible at those two, and then finally settled on a 2D model. I really like the 2D aesthetic, and I implement a lot of anime elements in my content. However, I have been learning more about 3D models lately, and I do have a lot of different video ideas that will require me to use a 3D model. So what do you think? Are you going to try PNG or GIFtubing, or are you going to get a Live2D model, or take a crack at 3D models? Let me know in the comment section down below. Here are some other video topics about VTubing that I've made for you to check out. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope this video has been helpful to you. Bye!